Celebrating Danny's wonderful, wonderful life. Danny Marona used to say, "I'm an entertainer, first of all, and after that, I have no idea who I am." I'm here to tell you, Danny, you were so much more than that. I didn't know Danny as an entertainer as much as I knew him as a human being. At a dinner one night with Danny and Sherry at our house, I asked him if he ever wrote anything down about his wonderful stories, his life and times. Now that conversation came a magical time for me, as he said he'd tell me his stories if I would help him put them down in writing. Danny invited me into his world. I was privileged to sit with Danny for nearly 2 years in his home, meeting almost weekly for 2 or 3 hours a day. During those hours, we sometimes conversed, but mostly it was Danny, walking me through his life, remembering details long forgotten, musing on what-ifs. Story led to story. Sometimes he remembered things he'd not thought of for years, sharing them with a chuckle and many times tears. Danny Marona was born in 1947 in Loma Linda, California. And by his own account, he loved to perform even as a youngster in front of his parents. It was a love that sustained him all his life. For 50 years, he performed for audiences, small and large, in lounges, piano bars, showrooms across the country. He played piano, did comedy, sang, and his audiences loved him. Danny was legendary in the San Francisco Bay Area, and he was renowned throughout California and Nevada. He also performed across the country at venues in New York City, Chicago, Nashville. Did I get that right, Danny? To name a few. Along the way, he hosted a couple of radio shows, helped organize and perform for many charity events, directed and starred in several plays in the Magic Valley, raised a family with his wife, his friend, his partner, and his soulmate, Sherry. He told me, in his own words, "One of my dreams was to be able to help young people who had passion and talent in the performing arts." And so he and Sherry did just that through the Danny Marona Performing Arts Scholarship Fund, supporting performing arts education in high schools and also at Idaho State University and the College of Southern Idaho. Danny contracted Lyme disease sometime in 2005, and as the disease progressed, he lost the ability to play piano, and he could no longer perform as well as he wanted to. His physical condition hastened his retirement in 2007. He grew up in humble circumstances. He told me, quote, "I guarantee that if you're the son of a Pentecostal minister, it will have an effect on you and your worldview one way or the other. You'll either embrace it or you'll shun it. By the time I was 5 or 6 years old, I'd been to every kind of church imaginable all through the South. That's what we did. Travel. I've been to snake-handling churches, and almost every one of them, the Pentecostal churches, speak in tongues and all that. So when you're 5 years old, you really can't put much together. But as the years have gone by, I've come to realize a lot of things about my own religion, my own spirituality, and it's just amazing when I look back at how I was raised, and a lot of it was just great." Danny was a kind of child prodigy on the piano. His mom had a player piano, the kind you had to pump. Technology is our friend. So he had a player piano at home, the kind you had to pump with your feet. You put a piano roll in there, and his mom would pump the piano. And Danny loved that. He asked her time and time again, "Please play another one, Mom, please play another one." And she got tired and said, "Danny, why don't you just play?" So he would get up on the piano stool and play things out one by one. Pretty soon he was playing with one hand. Pretty soon he was playing with two. Pretty soon he was playing songs from memory at 5 or 6 or 7 years old. At a very young age, he started lessons, and he worked to earn the 50 cents a week it took him to pay for them. That was as important as it got for him to be able to pay for his piano lessons. By the way, he also developed into a fine young singer, and eventually ended up singing with the Pasadena Boys Choir. Here's what he told me. "One of my proudest moments was the San Francisco Opera program production of La Bohème. It was November of 1958, so I was about 12. My name was the same size in the program as Dorothy Kirsten and Gianni Raimondi and Mario Delmonico and all those great guys. Dorothy Kirsten was one of the great opera stars of her time, and my name was there as big as hers. I played the part of a boy. But I got my name in the program, so that was pretty good. The arc of his adult professional career started with piano bars and small venues and ended with sellout concerts. Danny's adult career began after his stint in the Army in 1968. His fame in the San Francisco Bay Area centered on his 4-year run at the Jack London Inn, located in Jack London Square in Oakland. There, Danny honed his craft, cutting his teeth on the well-heeled, sophisticated audiences of the Bay Area. His nightclub act developed a powerful following, and most nights his shows were standing room only. Danny often talked about the Jack London Square as a marvelous place for all manner of top-notch entertainment. People could have dinner at one of the great restaurants on the square, walk over and hear Danny at one of his shows, then head over to another club for a nightcap. Danny felt his skill as an entertainer was actually formed and polished there to a degree. His popularity there was so powerful, as were his name and reputation, that clubs were named after him. And he performed at these venues in the early 70s. Danny's of Concord, Danny Marona's in Walnut Creek, Danny's Hideaway. In time, he worked many other nightclubs, including long-term gigs at the Hyatt and Sheraton properties. Danny eventually added the world of casino lounge entertainment to his performance. Casino lounges were a peculiar challenge for entertainers. Casino customers are a transient audience, and they used to lounge as a place to rest, to relax, take a break from gambling, or perhaps have a drink before the main show. There were no lounge tickets, so customers came and went. As Danny noted, if they didn't like what they were hearing, they simply got up and left. It's a testament to Danny's skill that his lounge performances often were packed, and there were lines of people waiting to get in for one of his shows. It's a tribute to Danny's abilities that his lounge shows eventually started outdrawing main showroom acts. Because of his consistent ability to pack lounges, Danny eventually moved up to perform as the headliner in the main showroom, the pinnacle of casino entertainment. Unlike lounges or nightclubs, showroom audiences bought tickets specifically for a show, and they stayed for the whole performance. In addition, Sherry encouraged Danny to start doing some concerts. And they started offering shows at regular venues, and Danny was at the top of his game in the final decades of his performing career, commanding top salaries and top bookings as a showroom and concert performer. Danny's performing experiences represent really the last stage of the golden age of nightclub, lounge, showroom, and concert entertainment, from the early 70s through his retirement in 2007. Danny was a contemporary of comedians like Jay Leno and Jackie Gale, performers like Louis Prima, Wayne Newton, Tony Orlando. He rubbed shoulders with sports legends like Jim Otto, George Blanda, Willie McCovey, Charlie Findlay. He was so proud of his wall of fame in his house, which occupied a long hallway. He told me that only those he deemed worthy are on that wall. He told me that those he deemed worthy are on the wall. The bar was very high, and he only wanted people there who were first, good human beings, and secondly, who made a positive impact. Throughout his career, Danny built a reputation as an honest and fair man. His word was solid, and as one acquaintance noted, if Danny said something was so, you could take it to the bank. I think Danny looked for that quality in everybody. Famous and accomplished as he was, though, Danny's life has been full of the struggles and everyday experiences of the common man. Formed in part by his parents and siblings, and in large part by his own inner drive and great talent, he always explored life as it has come to him. As a top entertainer, he was a student of humanity. He loved to analyze his work, even in retirement. He would recall some aspect of a show or something he learned about the craft of entertaining, how he studied the craft of his peers like Louis Prima or Wayne Newton to be better and hopefully be the best. He loved his profession. One of the most important things he learned was that successful comedy and music has to be about connections to the common man. He said, a good joke has to be about something that every person in your audience can relate to. It has to be something that's happened to them. And Danny worked tirelessly to make the audience see some of their own life in a story or a joke or the music, and he did that every single performance he gave. Anyone who ever went to his show will remember he always gave his all. He said, I'm proud
proud of always giving 110%. The one thing that I can say, my whole career, every time I walked out on stage, anytime, anywhere, without exception, I gave it everything I had, always. Perhaps that means more to me than all the celebrities I've met, all the money I've made, all the big cars I've driven, all the big homes I've lived in. Danny cared a great deal about his audiences and how they came away from his shows. It's just to say that if you were to ask most people who attended my show on a regular basis to sum up Danny Marona in a couple of words, they would say, family man, good husband. I think they would say that before they say I was talented. Danny and Sherry retired in Twin Falls, and though his physical abilities were diminished, Danny was as energetic as they come. Even in retirement, Danny was busy. He acted in directed plays locally. He was an active member of the Twin Falls Rotary. Ask any Rotarian about Exchequer Marona, or Danny leading the singing every meeting. He and Sherry attended events in town and dined out with friends, and they shared their beautiful home with so many. Aside from his total commitment to his music and the art of performing, he enjoyed hobbies. These included a passion for golf and fine automobiles. Danny was an avid golfer, and he played regularly until he was physically unable to hold the club. Even so, he would accompany Sherry, who is an amazing golfer, by the way, and offering, I'm sure, sound advice from the golf cart. He followed golf to the very end, and he loved to watch it on television. He knew the players then and now, and I learned a few things from his vast store of golf wisdom. His secret was, start your swing high, and end your swing high. Yeah, you have it. He developed a passion for exquisite automobiles after his days in the Army, and over the years he collected some of the classics. In fact, not too long ago, he could be seen driving his vintage 1976 Cadillac Eldorado, a bright red, white-topped convertible around town. Sherry Marona is the love of Danny's life, and an amazing and accomplished individual. Meeting her was the beginning of the most significant change in Danny's life. Danny said his audiences learned to love Sherry as much as they loved him. He said, Sherry is my wife, my love, my best friend. She's generous to a fault and supportive to a degree I could never have imagined had I not met and married her. Her sense of fair play heightens the respect of all who are privileged to know her. Finally, and most importantly, she really knows how to love, completely and without reservation. As a result, I have learned to love the same way. When he talked about Sherry, he said, I got lucky. I've learned so much from Sherry about humanity, and about the world and why we're on it, and what our place in the world is. Before I met Sherry, I never cared. I didn't understand, nor do I care about any of that. I just went to work at night, and I was an entertainer, and apparently I was pretty damn good. I made good money, enough to drive a new car, eat dinner at great restaurants in San Francisco, and live in a penthouse. And that was enough. And what else did I need in life? Well, apparently he needed Sherry. Danny believed in community and in connections, the support, the commitment of making where they lived a better place. And that was apparent here in Twin Falls, a place Danny and Sherry loved. He said, every time I've talked to somebody up here in Twin Falls that I've never talked to before, the first thing they say is, Danny, you've done so much for this community. Well, I never thought I really did all that much for this community. And I offered my talents in various ways, but that was all I knew to offer. I have nothing to offer the medical community. I have nothing to offer the scientific community. But I do have talents, and my dad taught me I had a responsibility to share that. I just grew up thinking that and believing it. I thought when the community of Twin Falls has treated me so wonderfully and taken me into its heart, why wouldn't I try to give something back? I'm a guy who has very few regrets. I'm just very happy with the way my life turned out. Did I put it all together the way I should have? Probably not. But I always seemed to land on my feet. And one of my strong points was that I always learned something from everything I did. I tried to have integrity. It seems like you get a clearer focus the further away you get from it. I'm now looking at life, and my perspective is from the other side now. I'm quite happy. Every time a reporter from a newspaper, magazine, or whatever would ask me how I thought history would judge me, I always told them, Well, if I was smart enough to know that, I'd probably be a reporter. The time I spent with Danny was a blessing and an honor. I'm grateful to Danny for his candor and courage in sharing his life story. And I'm honored to share some of it here today with you. Remembering Danny and his life is like looking through a wonderful kaleidoscope, flashing images of color and rays of brilliant light and pattern. His life was rich, varied, exciting, full of struggle and accomplishment. And he had the kind of wisdom that comes from a life well lived. I often think about Danny, and considering his life transforms me a little, helps me be better and understand the contours of the human heart and the human spirit. When you remember him, when you smile at one of his very funny jokes, or hear him again in your memory, his amazing piano playing, or his singing, remember too, he gave us his all, and he loved you.